TV is recording this event. It's the last one of the year, so we wanted to have it available for those who were not able to attend an event for this year. So if you have any aversion to being on film, primarily they'll focus on the screen and on the speaker. But if you really don't want to have any part of you photographed at all, the back row is probably the best place to go. Many thanks to the Henderson Police Department. We have Captain Jonathan Boucher, who's the commander of the West Patrol District that we are in. And we have Sergeant Chris Holman, who heads up the Neighborhood Resource Unit for the City of Henderson. So we're just very grateful that they could come and speak, and you'll be hearing from them in a couple of minutes. First of all, please sign in. It's very important to us to have accurate records of the membership so we can be sure to communicate with you when there are things to communicate, which we try and do once or twice a month to let you know what's going on and what precautions we can take. And also, everybody get a raffle ticket? If you didn't get a raffle ticket, raise your hand. Okay, the raffle prizes are really nice, so make sure you have a raffle ticket. In the interest of communications, just a quick survey. How many have heard about the meeting and knew the date and time of the meeting from their village facilitator, from the village organization? Yeah, and that's the way it should be, most people there. How many heard about it through the e-blasts that Sun City Anthem puts out? And we have some through the e-blasts. And Nextdoor, anybody hear about it on Nextdoor? Yeah. So as usual, the main way we need to communicate is through the village facilitators, through the block captains to each of you, because that's the organization that's most important. Now this is a pretty big meeting for a number of villages, and we thank you all for coming, just to recognize the folks who really keep your villages going as far as the Neighborhood Watch program goes. And if you could stand, Vern and Jack, are you here? Vern Danielson, Jack Yoakum, okay. I know Donna Faust is here. Donna's back there, okay. And Leonard Budzinski, did Leonard come in? They're out of town, okay. Ken Gonzalez and Gene Fries, I know, are both here. And Carolyn Newman is here. And Lynn Casimir is there waving in the back. So please give a round of applause to these folks. They really do a lot of work for your villages. Just a quick pass on the program. After I finish here, I'll say a few words about the statistics for year to date. And then you'll hear what you really want to hear is from the Henderson Police Department, and you'll actually learn about CPTED. And I'm not going to do a spoiler and tell you what CPTED means, but you'll hear about CPTED. Then there'll be a Q&A session where Captain Boucher or Sergeant Holman can answer whatever questions you may have. And after that, our Emergency Preparedness Service Group and Nigel Keep will be talking for the Emergency Preparedness Service Group. Gene Fries say a few words on the Community Patrol. And then we'll have an open, if we have time, we'll have an open discussion and Q&A. And then we'll have our door prize drawing, which is a really nice choice between either a Ring Video Doorbell 3 with an indoor camera or the exterior floodlight camera that's great if you have to leave a vehicle outside and you want a motion-sensitive floodlight camera. So that's a really good thing to have. We had a little discussion before the meeting about how many crimes we're having, and is 34 a lot, and this, that. We are a very safe community. And the way I like to present that is that City of Henderson was voted the second safest city of its size in the country, and our crime rate here is 1/4 of that for the City of Henderson. So we're a very safe community, and by communicating to you what crimes occur, all we're trying to do is let you be aware of what precautions you should be taking. So we're a very safe community. We're not perfect yet, but we're trying to be. So let's take a look at the where, when, and how of the crimes that have occurred so far this year. We have had a number of burglaries this year, more than prior years. I show up there the villages that have had multiple burglaries, Canyon Crest, Tall Mesa, Ridgecrest, et cetera. And a number of them have had just one burglary. And in discussions with Henderson PD, burglars, they like to focus, they like to get familiar with a method of operation and a community and how to get in and out and things like that. So it seems that it comes in bursts. Things quieted down in November, although we just had November 30th and December 2nd, we had a couple more burglaries. But almost all these burglaries could be prevented if everybody took the precautions that we try to advertise. Things like open doors and windows, open vehicles, safes that aren't bolted down. We had a case where they walked off with a safe. So there were a lot of basic things that if we all did them, we'd make it a heck of a lot harder for the burglars. So please take note of the security tips that we try and present to you in many different ways. So we've had 32 so far. That's probably a rate of maybe 36, 37 for the year. For reference, we've averaged 20 over the past 4 years. So this is not a good year. But again, it's versus a very tough bar to meet as far as we are a safe community. We had a couple of thefts up at Anthem Center, actually, an iPhone at the gym and a wallet at an event here. Most of the thefts had to do with vehicle crimes, and we actually had 3 in one night in Black Mountain Village where they just went boom, boom, boom. Of course, there the issue was the vehicles were unlocked. We just have to take the most basic precautions. When did they occur? 11 of the 31 occurred when either the home was vacant or the people were out of town. So it just emphasizes the need, when you're going to be away, take extra precautions, either with hardening your home or having the neighbors watch it or having the security patrol do a vacation check, things like that. Vehicles left out at night are a particularly attractive target for the thieves. So if you have to leave a vehicle out, make sure it's locked, there's nothing valuable, visible, or in it. Taking your garage door opener. There are precautions you need to take if you have to leave a vehicle out overnight. The third bullet point there, we had for a month or two there, we had occasions where during the sleeping hours, they would go around and bang on your windows or bang on your door to see if anybody was home. And unfortunately, we had a couple of cases where people said, well, I didn't want to make any noise. Well, that's the worst thing you can do. You have to make noise. As soon as that happens, turn on the lights, call 911, yell, I've called the police, because they are attempting a burglary of the home. So just be aware of that when there's an unusual banging or knocking or whatever. Let them know someone's home, turn on lights, and if it is at a time when that's totally unexpected, call 911, because that's an attempted burglary. And I mentioned about the burglaries coming in waves. How did they occur? Most often through the front door. And if you have a security screen door, that's a big help, although there was an instance where they used a crowbar to try and open a security screen door while the owners were out of town, so they had time to do it. But basically, securing your front door is the most important thing you can do. Either with a security screen door, the door jammers work really well. They're $20 down at Lowe's, and they prop themselves against the door handle, and they make it very difficult to push in through the front door. We had one through an open garage door, enough said, and 7 were through sliding doors, either it being open or lifted off the tracks and pushed in, or a rock through the window, through the glass. And now security laminate helps a lot against throwing a rock through the window. Stoppers help for sliding or lifting. So there are a lot of things you can do, and if we do them all, we'll certainly be a lot safer community. So with that, let me turn it over to Captain Boucher and Sergeant Holman, and they'll fill you in on the stuff you really want to hear about.
Well, good afternoon. I should say good evening. It feels like it's so dark so early. I feel like it's nighttime. I'm Captain Jonathan Boucher. I took over the West Area Command, which encompasses all of Anthem. Pretty much the boundaries are the 95 freeway, anything south of the 215, all the way out to Sloan. So that's my area command. Just to give you a little bit of background on myself, the last 2.5 years I supervised our detective bureau, our Homeland Security unit, our crime lab, our evidence vault. So that's I have a very investigative focused background. A lot of my upbringing, I was a detective and things of those nature. I supervised a lot of detective units. I took over here in August. So I transitioned out here. Immediately we recognized obviously the burglary problem that you guys were having. I want to tell you there's some good and some bad news with that. The bad news is the burglaries in this area, which includes Inspirata, Anthem Highlands, Sun City Anthem, and roughly Madera Canyon. This year, currently, compared to last year at this time, are up 33%, which is not what we want. But to give you perspective in that means right now, year to date, the last numbers I saw, we were at 68 burglaries in this area, which is a relatively large area, probably our largest area. And I believe last year at this time we were at 51. So big percentages, but again, as Don mentioned, our crime rates are still really, really low. But we don't want it to go up, we want it to go down. So we took a very aggressive approach. Just to give you an idea, we started sending unmarked units up here. We overloaded this area with additional resources, including overtime officers. We partnered with our detective bureau very actively. We basically ended up figuring out that we had roughly 6 groups targeting this area. And I say groups, not individuals. 2, 3 suspects each involved with these groups. October was our worst month. We had 28. But over the course of October, we were able to start picking off these guys. I think last week we arrested another one, and we are currently at, I want to say if my numbers are correct, we made 7 arrests affecting either 4 or 5 of those groups. So to give you an idea, small amount of people equal a lot amount of crime. October, very bad month, 28, we start picking them off. Last month for this area, 10. So we literally cut it in more than half. So that's kind of the work that we've been doing. And in addition to that, we still have a couple more that we have identified that we're trying to get our hands on. So it looks like we have really taken out a bunch of those cells, so we should see that precipitous drop basically continue. So I wanted to give you guys kind of an update on that. If you're not on Nextdoor, I would recommend you please get on Nextdoor. I do post on there. I try to give pretty consistent updates. If we have suspect vehicle information and things of that nature, I will put it out on there. Seems like it's the best reach for me to get kind of information out. I also tend to answer questions on there and things of that nature, so if you have any questions of that. I know that one of the biggest questions I get recently is when does the new West Station open? Well, I think that's slated for March or April. High likelihood is you will then fall under that station. I don't know how they're going to exactly cut it, but this would probably most likely be out there, so just so you're aware of that. Other than that, I think Don mentioned a couple things. The other issue we're having citywide, vehicle burglaries, vehicle break-ins, and unfortunately a huge percentage of those are just unlocked. So remember, if thieves are successful in an area, they will continue to come back to that area because they've been successful. I will tell you, in many instances this year, we have lost firearms in cars that were on the street overnight. Another big thing about that is if you leave a purse, a bag, a laptop, something sitting on the seat, they are more likely to shatter your window even if you lock your car. Why? Because they're guaranteed something. They're guaranteed a win. If they don't see something on the seats, they tend to more so stick to trying the door handles. Why? Because they don't want to draw attention to themselves. They want to be able to try as many cars as possible. So I'll just give you a bad example. This last weekend, Inspirata had 9 vehicles hit over the course of 2 nights. And I want to say 4 or 5 of those were window smashes, and then the others were unlocked. So again, removing valuables from your car, trying to make us a hard target, right? The less successful they are, the better off we are, the less they want to come back out here. And then obviously, please do not secure firearms in your car overnight. Don't leave them there. One of the other big issues with home burglaries, and something you can definitely do to help us, home burglaries, vehicle burglaries, is knowing what you own. And what I say with that is I could stop somebody going down the street with 3 TVs in the back of the car, and I know they probably just stole them, and they're all Toshibas. And when we take your crime report, we say, what's your serial number on your great 80-inch TV? And you go, I have no idea. Problem is, Toshiba makes about, 100,000 of those. So I can't necessarily, I know the guy's up to no good, but I can't prove necessarily that he's the guy I'm after, if that makes sense. So same thing with firearms. We did away with registration of firearms. I believe it was back in 2015. The legislature required no longer that you had to register your firearm with the police department. Since that time, people do not know the serial numbers of their firearms, which is very, very problematic. Obviously, criminals target those because they are very, very easy to sell, very quick to sell, and they can make money quickly. Problem is we can't prove they're stolen unless we have a serial number on it. So you'd be surprised at how many criminals we come across that have guns on them. We run the serial number, and we have to give it back to them if they're not a felon. So please know that what your serial numbers are. There's great resources to do it. This is what I tell people. Almost 99% of people have one of these. Take 5 minutes. Walk around your home. Anything that's really high dollar that you're afraid of losing, take a picture of it, take a picture of the serial number. Take a picture of it, take a picture of the serial number. If you have heirloom jewelry or very, very high, high dollar jewelry, take good photographs of it. Because here's the problem. If you can imagine, this is Las Vegas. We have, when I was a detective, I think we had 38 different pawn shops across the valley. So if I steal jewelry, they're going to log it as a 1-carat diamond ring. Well, how many 1-carat diamond rings do you think are pawned throughout the Las Vegas Valley in a week or 2 weeks? A lot. So the better, especially heirloom jewelry, things of that nature, things that are unique, take pictures of those, because now we can get those out to the pawn shops, and then they can, oh, hey, yeah, somebody brought that in. It gives us leads to deal with that sort of stuff. So just a couple of things on the front end. We're continuing to work up here. We have seen some good progress in terms of the home burglaries. I think citywide right now we're sitting at about 13%. This area tends to come in waves, like Don mentioned. I supervised some problem-solving units when I was a lieutenant, and we had a wave up here where we were having issues. It was actually folks coming in from California. We were able to put that down after a couple months as well. So it looks like we're on the right track in getting those things down again. But one of the biggest things, please stay vigilant. If you see something, we're working on some programs. I've talked to Don about some programs that we might try to implement with your HOA to kind of help get us even more effective. But we're working through those. But just stay vigilant. If you see something in your neighborhood and it just really doesn't make sense, call 311. I think Don mentioned, the door knocks. A lot of these guys, there's a couple different MOs they use. One is door knock. They'll walk up, literally knock on the door, and if you answer, they're, hey, is Jimmy here? And you're like, Jimmy? Who is Jimmy? Oh, I must have the wrong address. And then they go next door. Something like that happens, it's out of the ordinary. Give us a call. Worst case scenario, we come out, we check them out, and we leave. No big deal. Sometimes they'll use door-to-door sales. Remember, in the city of Henderson, you must carry a business license with you if you are doing door-to-door sales. So if they are knocking on the door, hey, we want to sell you solar or whatever the case may be, and they don't have a business license, that's a problem. Call us. We'll come out. We'll check it out. The other thing Don mentioned, knock on the door, please say something, even if you say it through the door. Can I help you? They'll probably leave. It's when they knock on that door, nobody answers, they realize nobody's home, then they try to force entry or go around the back of the door. The last thing I will tell you, I'll caution you, is the last kind of major MO they use is they will drive neighborhoods and they will wait to see somebody leave their house. So if you are pulling out of your driveway and you start traveling down the street and somebody was coming down the street and all of a sudden they yank over to the side of the road and you don't see them get out of the car, probably suspicious, okay? What happens when we drive and go somewhere? We're either getting out to go in or we're leaving to leave. If we're sitting in the car, if we're pulling over to the side, a little bit suspicious, 311, have us come out. We staff all of our different areas, so obviously it's prioritized, but we like to at least get our talking to those folks to make sure they either belong in the area or they don't. And that's how you can help us. One of the groups was a savvy lady down in Sun City, McDonald Ranch. who actually, I don't recommend this, don't walk right up on a burglar, but literally got a really great face shot of him, which we were able to tie back. We tied it to a couple of burglaries down in Sun City, McDonald Highlands, and then a couple in Metro. So staying vigilant does help us. Obviously, car descriptions, license plates if you can get them, things of that nature, but we don't ask you to necessarily confront them yourselves. That doesn't always turn out well. Luckily, in this case, it did, and that was an incident where they were stealing a safe too, and he's walking down the street with a safe. So I guess she felt a little bit safe. I don't know. So with that, I don't want to take too much of your time. I wanted to open up for any questions for me, because obviously I can't stay extended periods of time. So go ahead, sir.
Just a second.
The individuals you arrested recently, was it a misdemeanor or is it a felony? And what will become of them? And the second thing is, I'm used to 911, 311 is new to me, so.
Okay, yeah, no problem. 911, obviously, emergency situation. If it's a crime in progress, especially a home burglary or something like that, 911. If you see somebody maybe sitting outside in a car and you're kind of like, not sure, been there a while, maybe it's something, maybe it's nothing, 311. Okay, that it's not necessarily emergency that's happening right now. Okay, those are the two numbers that we utilize. They are both monitored 24 hours a day. The one issue you may have, and they'll correct you, is cell towers. Depending on which cell tower you hit, if you're using a cell phone, will direct you to which 911 center you get. So sometimes the cell towers, depending on where you're at, especially if you're close to the border, will hit on a Metro tower and it'll send you to Metro. Don't worry, they quickly patch you back through, but just make sure that when you're talking to somebody, don't start going into your story, because they might cut you off and go, wait, this isn't for us, it's for Henderson. So they'll ship you back. As for the suspects in our cases, they're felony crimes. Home burglary and vehicle burglary are both felony crimes. One sad thing was one of the individuals we caught from the group, we had caught during a previous investigation with another group that was tied to about 250 home burglaries. He was out on an ankle monitor pending trial. He had a case in California, so they took the ankle monitor off so he could go to his case in California, and guess what? It didn't get put back on. He comes back out here, he starts reoffending. So we got him back into custody. We work at the DA's office to make sure he stays there until he actually faces his criminal charges. Unfortunately, prosecutions are not up to us. Penalties are not up to us. That's the DA's office. A lot of times it's based upon how lengthy their criminal history is. They tend to focus more on violent crime for longer incarceration periods. That doesn't mean property crime doesn't get incarcerated. Really depends on history. A lot of the ones we've targeted recently seem to have some pretty good histories. So that should hopefully result in some pretty good prosecutions, take them out of the game for a while, so that they stop targeting Henderson. So, and then obviously we work closely with the DA's office, especially our detectives. One of the things we do is we tie back a lot of other cases. So once we capture them on one, our detectives are excellent at working backwards and tying in as many of those cases as possible. So when they go to the DA's office, they don't go, well, hey, we got Joe Smith on, breaking into 2 houses. Like I said, that one case, they literally linked back 250 burglaries across the valley, including ours and Metro's. So obviously those guys will be looking at substantially more time because they're substantially more prolific. So we do those sorts of things to try to get really good prosecutions on, if that answers your question, hopefully.
Are most of the criminals that you're catching, are they mostly from this area, from Las Vegas, or are they coming in from other states?
Primarily, we do not have a lot of local folks like Henderson, folks targeting Henderson. Most of our suspects come out of Las Vegas, North Las Vegas. Periodically, we do have, depending on the crime series, we do have some that come up from California. Like I said, at one point we had some gang members that were coming up doing crimes here, and then they would flee right back down to, I believe it was the San Bernardino area. So we had tied them in and then worked with San Bernardino to make sure that we could get those people into custody. So sometimes we do have that. We do get some influx from California. Our biggest probably percentage, if I were to break down the statistics, it'd probably be Vegas and North Las Vegas. That come out, target, and then go back. I think I had him over here first.
Well, of the burglars that you've apprehended, what percentage of them are armed when they come into a house?
I can't give you percentages. I will tell you I want to say at least three, we know at least three of the groups were clearing residences with firearms, meaning they were coming in armed with firearms, either expecting to find somebody or hopefully not find somebody, but wanted to be prepared in case they did find somebody. So that's one of the things we say when you have alarm systems or your front door locks, and if somebody's knocking, say something, because obviously we don't want them kicking through the door with somebody home. You got to remember, burglars do not want they really don't want a confrontation. Even if they're prepared for one, the last thing they want is to come across somebody inside the house. Their key goal is to really, that's why they wait for people to leave, or they'll knock on the doors, or maybe they'll peek in the windows just to see if they see any movement, because really what they're interested in is the property. They're not really interested in dealing with people. They want to get in, steal what they can, and get out. So if that explains it, hopefully. I think he was next.
You had mentioned earlier that you have groups come around and surveil the area. How often do they do that? Are they in cars or otherwise? Do they do it every night or day, or how frequently do they do it? When I say that, it's a common MO. Common MO means like method. It's a common way that they try to identify houses that they can attack with nobody home. So, if they're looking to go out to commit crimes today, they'll probably just pick a random neighborhood. They'll come out, they'll go, okay, hey, I'm going to make a right here, and they'll start trolling the neighborhood until they see somebody. Oh, he said, he mentioned that we had unmarked vehicles up here. Yes, we did have unmarked vehicles up here. We don't put out how often, how many. For a specific reason, we don't want criminals knowing our tactics. That's why there's other investigative methods that I don't mention, that I don't talk about, because obviously they learn like we learn. The more they learn, the better they get, the harder they are to catch. We want to keep them as dumb as possible. So, what I said was we put extra resources up here. We put substantial extra resources up here. I can't give you the exact numbers, but a lot of it was on overtime. We had detectives up here. We had some SWAT units up here, K-9 units up here. Even some of our motor units, our motorcycle officers targeted the area. So a broad spectrum of folks came up, if that helps. Go ahead, ma'am.
So if I have an emergency, my cell phone is out of the area code. So I tested it and dialed 911, and I get a recording that the call cannot be completed. What would be your suggestion if there is an emergency, how to quickly reach the police department?
Contact your carrier, because I've never heard of that before. Going to what it does is your area code doesn't really matter. How it gets directed is whatever cell tower it hits. So whatever signal your phone hits, if it hits a certain tower, that tower is directed to forward it to either Las Vegas or Henderson. Where it gets difficult is obviously they're not exactly, they don't base their towers specifically for Henderson or specific for Las Vegas. So if you're close to a border especially, you may hit a tower that thinks, okay, this needs to go to Las Vegas when it should come to us. But again, they redirect those really fast. But I've never heard of that. So I would definitely see what's going on with your phone, because that's a problem. Yeah. Ma'am?
I was just curious regarding these mailbox break-ins. Is it more prevalent here in Sun City, or is this something that's universal among Las Vegas communities as well?
Yeah, mailbox thefts are everywhere. Those seem to come in waves too. We get, we had an individual doing that we identified off of Green Valley Parkway and kind of some of the condo communities that we took into custody. Those are hit or miss too. Yeah. But you'll see those everywhere. It doesn't seem to be as prevalent to me as what it used to be. And I used to work a lot of white-collar crime, fraud, identity theft, things like that. It seemed to be a lot more prevalent back then. Some of that is really kind of dying off because of so much information online that you don't necessarily need to get the mail to commit, wire fraud and identity theft and things of those nature. So that might explain some of it.
What is your stand your ground laws in Nevada?
I'm sorry? What was that?
Stand your ground laws in Nevada?
Okay, so stand your ground, you meaning protect yourself. Basically, what I recommend people to do is, obviously, you have a right to self-defense. Now, you have to be very careful with that. And the reason I say that is, depending on your circumstances and the facts of what happens, depends on whether or not it is justified or not justified, if that makes sense. So you have to, I recommend to a lot of people, if you're going to carry firearms, you plan on defending yourself, get some training. Even if you get a concealed carry class, they have some really good guidance on, when you should act, when you should not act, how you should act if you're encountered by police officers or whatever the case may be. So I would recommend doing that. We don't offer any citizen training, just for liability purposes, obviously, because we can't cover all of the various facts and circumstances that could possibly happen that could tweak it one way or the other, if that makes sense. So.
Can you expand on that for a moment?
Who was that?
Can you expand on that for, say, like in-home, in-garage, on property?
What my recommendation is if you have to defend your life, that is the best time to use self-defense. Remember, for use to defend property is not good. And we've had some circumstances like that where people have kind of really towed that line in between, and it made things very difficult on whether or not it was a justifiable shooting or not. So you have to just be really careful. Self-defense is primarily protection of yourself or protection of another person from substantial bodily harm, meaning they have a knife, they have a gun, they have a weapon of some sort. In your home, obviously, you have much more weight for you because they shouldn't be there to begin with. But could it be problematic if you shot somebody unarmed and it was on camera and they came in and then they were trying to leave and you shot them? Yes, you could have serious problems with that. So that's why you can't there's so many different facts and circumstances that you can't really give you an absolute definitive answer because one fact could change it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we've been here for 22 years up here, and a few years back there was a real issue with Craigslist soliciting and offering to sell information. And I wondered if that was still going on, if you guys have gotten involved with any of that, and what is happening with stuff like that. And what it was is that individuals that were coming into homes were not actually doing anything, but they were selling information about when people were in and out and on vacation and where valuables might be or what might be there, et cetera, or a garage code or whatever. So what is the current status of those kinds of things? And I mean, Craigslist is probably just one of many boards today.
Yeah, a lot of your online sites are usually investigated at the federal level because it really depends on where the servers are located. It gets really complicated. I had a case that actually went into multiple other countries at one point. So it gets really, really complicated, and the jurisdictions get really, really difficult depending on the country, the state, whether or not it's federal. So those are typically a higher level. They go to either the Secret Service or they go to the FBI typically. As for information, that's one of the things I talked to Don about making us a harder target in terms of Henderson. One of those things is independent contractors. And what I mean is like landscapers, pool service companies, things of that nature. One of the things I recommended to Don was possibly looking at, hey, having a list of vendors, not one, but let's say, you have 8 or 9 vetted landscape companies that have been, they have a business license, they've been in business for a good period of time. They're probably not going to be the ones that are the fly-by-night, because you can get into trouble. Like Craigslist, you can get a landscaper off there, and yeah, he's going to charge you $50, but are you exposing yourself to maybe something else? You don't know. I mean, no business license, who knows what he's doing? So that's one of the things, like the programs we had talked to Don about originally was, maybe a listing of, landscapers, pool companies, house cleaners, look with your HOA and go, hey, we can't tell you who to use, but we recommend, these 10 companies or whatever the case may be, because we've vetted them. They've worked for, maybe they have a bunch of recommendations from various people in the neighborhood who've had great experiences from them, stuff like that. So it's some of that is doing your homework, if that makes sense.
Okay, I think we can take one more, and then I think you'll stay for a few minutes after if anybody has any questions to it. In the back there, and then we can go on with the program.
Just real quick, what can you do about increased enforcement of the speeding on Anthem Parkway? I mean, I'm not talking about myself, of course.
Just not you, yeah. Yes, that is a consistent complaint. I do get our traffic guys up here as much as possible. Some of that is we used to have a much larger traffic unit. We've seen some attrition with the police department. So we do have some vacancies. That unit used to be in the 20s, I believe. I believe right now we're down in the 15. We have like 15 that are dedicated to that. We've also seen an uptick, obviously, with the influx of traffic, a lot more accidents, which when they get taken away, accident occurs, they get taken away. Well, that accident, by the time they take the report, get the cars towed, get it out of the roadway, maybe 45 minutes. That takes away from their enforcement time. So some of it is them. They get up here that they do a lot of enforcement. Other things is our officers are directed to do it in between priority calls for service, right? So their priority is first their 911 calls or things like that. Secondarily is the speeding and stop sign violations, suspicious persons, things of that nature. They prioritize their time. They're going to be looking for criminals, suspicious people in vehicles more so than speed. But when we do get specific areas and specific problems, we do try to direct resources at it. It's just, we have to take the most important first and kind of work our way down. I know we've had it out here several times where we have the motorcycles that do the loop. Sometimes we get lucky and they crash and we catch them. Other times they know that there is no way, that a patrol car is going to keep up with a motorcycle like that. And number two, we can't chase them anyway because it's a misdemeanor crime. And we're not going to risk somebody else's life to chase somebody just because they're speeding on a motorcycle. So we have to kind of take it as we can get it. But there have been a few times where they take off and then they lay it down and then we catch them and we arrest them appropriately for doing that. So, all right. Well, thank you very much, folks. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much, Captain Boucher. And now we have Sergeant Chris Holman. Sergeant Holman heads up the Neighborhood Resource Unit for the City of Henderson. Officer Alex Alcantara, that many of you have heard, works in the Neighborhood Resource Group. So he's on vacation. I'm not quite sure where, but he's on vacation. And Sergeant Holman had graciously agreed to cover the SEPTED material that I alluded to earlier. So Sergeant Chris Holman.
All right. I always like coming up here because there's always such a great turnout, and it's not just me talking to one person. I really like that. Alex sends his regards. I think he's getting recruited by Santa Claus up at the North Pole for security or something. But he sends his regards and wishes he could have been here today. Appreciate Captain Boucher being up here and talking with you and all the great questions that you guys have asked so far. Want to kind of help over the holiday season, just kind of answer some questions maybe that you have through this little presentation to help pass on some information that might help keep your home a little bit safer and you a little safer over the holidays. Let me just stick this in the holder here. Forget my hands. Can you all still hear me? Okay, so crime prevention through environmental design is a nationally recognized program that we use here in Henderson as well. And basically the principle behind it is to reduce crime simply by taking precautions at your home and environmental things that you can do. And so we're going to kind of step through some of those tonight. We have a program that we have a couple programs that we use here in Henderson to try to keep things a little safer, and some of those are up on the screen here right now. So we have a program called the Four Corners, where we encourage you to know who your neighbors are. So the neighbor across the street, the neighbor behind you, and the neighbor to your left and your right. And simply by getting to know your neighbor, that's kind of like step one of a neighborhood watch. It's like a little mini neighborhood watch. So hopefully you all know who your neighbors are. If you don't, maybe this is a good opportunity to get to know your neighbors a little bit better through the holiday season by just stopping by and introducing yourself, and hopefully they'll introduce themselves as well. So that's the Four Corners, and then if you just write down like their name and a phone number to contact them, that way if they leave their garage door open, you can call them and ask them, hey, did you mean to leave your garage door open? Or maybe the side gate, something like that. You can call and talk with them, and they can call and talk with you, and that'll help reduce trips out there unnecessarily. The second program is Neighborhood Watch, which you guys are all very familiar with because you're here tonight under the Neighborhood Watch program. The next program we have is our Capture program, which is a video surveillance program, and it's a layer on top of the Neighborhood Watch. So the Ring doorbell that's being auctioned off tonight or raffled off tonight is a sample of the Capture program that I'm talking about. If you're the lucky winner of that Ring doorbell or the Ring floodlight camera, you can register that device and your address with us by going to thecityofhenderson.com/capture. And you can register. It only takes about 45 seconds to register, and it just lets us know that you have a camera on your home or multiple cameras on your home and what areas you might be able to capture. And then when something happens in the neighborhood, the detectives or the patrol officers, that information gets plotted onto a map, and we can see in the neighborhood who has cameras on their home. And now we have a method of contacting you through a phone call or through email, so we don't knock on your door at 2 o'clock in the morning and disturb your sleep. We can follow up with you and just simply ask you, please check your camera, and if you see anything between this time and that time, send it to us. We never get access to your footage, so you don't have to worry about Big Brother checking up on you. You are in complete control of that, but it allows us to help solve the crime. And like Captain Boucher was saying, that's one of the methods we've been able to link this particular person to those 250 different break-ins, is because they were captured on video surveillance on some of those. And so it really, really helps us. So if you haven't already registered for Capture and you have cameras on your home, please do so. And then the last layer of protection that we're talking about is the Crime Prevention through Environmental Design program. So if we participate in all four of these things, we're helping to reduce crime in our neighborhood. So one of the things that we need to do in order to help stop the opportunity for crime is we have to take away the opportunity. We can't take away the criminal's desire to break the law or to steal. That's something that they have created themselves. And then the ability is there as well. And so what we try to do is we just try to remove the opportunity out of the three parts of the crime triangle, because you need all three of these in order to be successful in committing a crime. And so we can't affect the desire, we can't affect their ability, but we can affect their opportunity by reducing opportunity, right? So if we leave that laptop bag in the front seat of the car, or we leave the gun inside the car, and we have NRA stickers all over our vehicle, we're kind of letting folks know that there's a possibility there's a gun inside that car. If we take that gun out of the car, we take the laptop out of the front seat of the car, we're reducing the opportunity, and better yet, if we secure our car in our garage, we're reducing the opportunity for them to be able to break into our vehicle. So that's an example of that. One of the other ways that we can do that is by managing our property well. So we're going to talk about these four different areas here: the natural surveillance, the access control, the territorial reinforcement, and the maintenance aspect of CPTED. The first one is natural surveillance. So when you leave your home, you walk out, what does the landscaping look like? That's one of the most common parts of natural surveillance, is the landscaping. So if our shrubbery and our trees are overgrown, or we have a whole lot of like a hedge that's 6 feet tall and a tree that's scraping the ground, it's very difficult to be able to see into your yard and from your yard out to the street and across to your neighbor's yard. And so we encourage our landscaping to be trimmed up. On shrubs and bushes, we ask that those don't get any higher than 3 feet at max. 2 feet is actually preferred. And then our trees, we want those to be cut at least 6 foot in height. I know if any of you are 6 feet and you like to walk your dog around the neighborhood and you have to constantly duck and play limbo with branches over the sidewalk, you know what I'm talking about. If we can keep those things trimmed up at 6, it makes it easy for us to walk around the neighborhood, but it also allows you to be able to see from the 2 foot to the 6 foot mark, 4 feet in between the shrub and the tree if somebody's standing there. So it's going to be a lot easier for folks to see. And then there's elevation changes on your property usually as well. So from the front door, your front window that you might look out if you hear a noise across the street, if you look out and all you see is a tree, you're not going to know that somebody's breaking into your neighbor's house across the way. But if we trim our trees up, there's a greater likelihood we're going to be able to see out onto the street and see what's going on out there. The second one is illumination on the property. So there's a lot of neighborhoods that really like the ambiance and being able to look out and see the Las Vegas Strip from here. It's a beautiful view, and so we don't want a lot of light to interrupt that view, and so we don't have a lot of light on our property or in the neighborhood. So there might not be street lights in your neighborhood, there might not be a lot of lights in the front of your home, but the illumination does help with reduction of crime. So if you have some lighting to where you'd be able to safely get from your car out on the street all the way to your front door, and have those working at night. I quite often forget at my house to remember if I'm going to be out late, especially with the time changes and it getting darker earlier. It makes it difficult sometimes to remember to turn those lights on, but they do have light sensing light bulbs that you can actually screw into your existing socket, and when it gets dark out, it detects the fact that there's not enough light out there, and it magically turns the light bulb on for you. And so those are very handy things that you can do. That way you can just leave your light on all the time. When the sun comes up and it's bright enough, the lights turn off and you don't ever have to worry about flipping that switch. But we do want to be courteous of our neighbors. We don't want like big floodlights and stuff shining into their windows at their nighttime and stuff when the rabbit runs by, it wakes them up, that kind of stuff. We don't want anything like that. So we need to be strategic about what we do, but have adequate lighting that we can see. It also helps us in law enforcement because as we drive through your neighborhood, a well-lit yard, we can see if somebody's standing in the middle of that yard. But if the landscaping's overgrown and there's no lighting, it's going to be very difficult to see somebody dressed up with a hoodie on and a mask and all that stuff standing in the middle of your yard because we can't see it. It's just too dark. So something to think about there. And then network with your neighbors to make sure that you're not offending anybody and that landscaping is trimmed up in such a way and that your stuff's not overgrowing into their yard and all that fun stuff there as well. And then just, by getting to know your neighbors under the Four Corners Project and know kind of who comes and goes from the home, who's expected there, if the grandkids are coming over, or if that young person that's in your yard is supposed to be there or not. And having that phone number to reach out to them when you see something suspicious. You can say, hey, I just saw somebody get in your mailbox, or somebody just picked up something off your front porch. Are they supposed to do that? No, I was expecting an Amazon package. They're not supposed to do that. Well, now you've got a head start on being able to call us so we can come out and hopefully catch the person. Access control. So we want to kind of guide people through the space. This is more common in businesses like the front of this facility here. There's nice crosswalks, there's markings, there's sidewalks that naturally take us to certain locations. That's something more popular in the business community and commercial industry. But we also have some of these access control things in our homes as well. We have gates that help separate our patio area from the street. We have driveway and nice maintained yards that kind of tell people don't cut through my grass, or don't cut through my rock landscaping, but stay on the driveway, stay on the pathway to my door. Don't use my door. I've got the doorbell out by the gate. Those kinds of things. And for those of you that have 4 walls, that's also letting people know, hey, stay out of this particular area. That's kind of the first warning sign without trespass signs or any of that stuff up. So while a lot of this stuff is more common with businesses, it does work for you as well. If you think of the analogy like your home is your castle, what did they used to do back in the day when we had castles? We dug a moat, right? We filled it full of water and alligators and all kinds of things. And then we had a drawbridge that would kind of lower down when we want people to come and visit us. And when in-laws show up, we don't want them there. We lift the drawbridge back up and they can't get inside. That's kind of what we're talking about. So think of your home as the castle. And what can you do to help secure your castle without turning it into Fort Knox? The next group we're going to talk about is the territorial reinforcement. This again includes lighting and fencing, and something that I know if you've ever heard Alex speak, he talks highly about hostile vegetation. So, a pyracantha bush, strategically placed cactus. There's some fruit trees that have, like 1.5-inch needles on them. Rose bushes are great as well. And if you strategically place those items in areas like next to a bedroom window or a kitchen window or one of the front windows that you don't want people to look in or to be able to come into your house at, a bad person trying to get in your home is going to think a lot differently about trying to get through that window when there's a big cactus standing there that keeps poking them in the rear end. They're not going to want to do anything with that, so they're going to stay clear of that particular bush or that particular area. So that's what we mean by hostile vegetation, and there are same thing around gates and walls. If you don't want people climbing up on your wall or hiding behind your bushes, if they have nice thorns on them, nobody's going to want to play with those particular plants. So those are some of the items that we're talking about in that particular area. And motion activated lighting is also another big key. So if something walks by, you can actually dial those in so it doesn't hit on the bunny rabbit that's hopping through to go get some grass out of the backyard, or the coyote chasing after the bunny rabbit trying to get the grass, but more of the person size. So you can strategically place that and dial in the sensitivity so it's not constantly going off all the time. But think about it, if you're in your yard or you're in your house and all of a sudden a light turns on from outside by the den or by the living room window, you're going to be more inclined to look and see what it is that just activated that light. I know I do. And so that's another attention-getting device that's going to be able to let you know something's out there, and maybe it's a good idea to pay attention to it. The last section we're going to talk about is maintenance. I know it's my absolute favorite thing to do on my days off is to maintain things that are broken around my house. So I'm sure that's the same kind of for you guys as well. But, it is incredibly necessary to maintain the things that we have to keep them nice, functioning, and being able to help provide a safer environment for us. So this is basically one of our community policing principles, the broken windows theory, if you've ever heard that mentioned before. And they did research on that, and they said in neighborhoods where there's a broken window that shows up on a business or on a home, if it's not immediately addressed and taken care of, the likelihood of crime continuing in that neighborhood or even having crime start in that neighborhood is much higher because nobody really cared about that particular thing. So if they're not taking care of that thing, what's the chances they're going to care about this? And so by maintaining your property, making sure your lights are taken care of, the neighborhood watch signs are changed out whenever they bleach out, that the parking lot out here has just been repainted. It looks absolutely beautiful. I can tell when I drive by here that the folks in this neighborhood care about this facility, and as I drive through some of the other neighborhoods around here, I can tell people care about their community. And so me as a potential bad guy, I'm going to think twice about trying to do anything in that community because I can tell you care about your community and you're not going to let that kind of stuff go on in your community. So by changing our light bulbs out, making sure they're working, making sure the stop signs and neighborhood watch signs and capture signs and ADT security signs are all taken care of. I know you're staying up on that. Making sure your landscaping is maintained. I know that you care about your home. And so I'm going to look for maybe another place that's not as well maintained if I was to try to break in or do something because it doesn't appear like they really care about the property. So maybe they won't care if I took their big TV or something. I don't know. So we want to repair and replace things that need to be repaired and replaced. And then as often as things break, we have to stay up on that. We have to keep that stuff maintained. So this is our email address. So we do still do home security inspections, so we can come out to your home. There is quite a waiting list at this moment, but we can come out to your home when the we have availability. In order to sign up for a home security inspection, you would like to email this particular email address. It's simple. It's neighborhoodwatch@cityofhenderson.com, or you can call the 702-267-5100 phone number. Leave a message that you want a home security inspection done, and we'll take your information and get you on schedule. For those of you that don't want to wait, you'd like the information now, if you are a YouTube person or you know how to get to YouTube, we have a number of videos posted on our YouTube channel for the City of Henderson Police Department. Recognize the badge, make sure it's our City of Henderson Police Department and not another City of Henderson somewhere else. But under our YouTube channel, we do have a number of videos up there that will show you very simple things, which is the same stuff we would cover if we came to your home. It's just shown kind of on a model home, but it shows you about the windows, it shows you about the door locks, it shows you about glass and trimming up your landscaping and lighting and the capture program and all that. You're more than welcome today, tonight, tomorrow, in your free time to go to that YouTube channel and take a look at those videos up there. And they should answer the majority of your questions. Okay? Are there any questions about SEPTED that I might be able to answer for you? Yes, sir. He's coming. She's coming.
Coming right behind.
When you track and record data on home burglaries, invasions, etc., do you ever bore down so deep into the data that you could tell, for example, whether there's a variance between events that occur on a through street versus a circle or a cul-de-sac?
Not me personally. So we do have like crime analysts that's their whole job is to kind of figure out patterns and things that happen. I honestly don't know if it's safer on a cul-de-sac or a through street or a gated or an ungated. The main thing that we see that is the common denominator are the folks that know their neighbors, that pay attention to what's going on, that call and report suspicious activity, and do the majority of the things that we're talking about here is the greatest reduction in crime that we've been able to see and basically prove. There's a reason that Neighborhood Watch has been around for as long as it has, because it's still tried and true. A lot of the younger communities have switched over to like a Facebook style of Neighborhood Watch. There's only one problem with that. We're not involved in it. The police department is not part of that Facebook page. And so you've just got folks that are posting about all this crime, but nobody's telling the police what's going on. And it's having this kind of relationship with you and you guys paying attention and letting us know what's going on. That's what makes the biggest difference in keeping neighborhoods safe. Great question. All right. Oh, one more over here from this gentleman. She's right there.
All right. I put on my house a switch that goes on, down to dusk, and the carriage lights at the front of my house. I think that's good because I'm in and out of town. But the alarm systems, with the break-ins, how many of those homes had alarm systems, or do you think that is truly a deterrent, and who do you recommend?
So it depends. We don't recommend any particular agency. We're not allowed to give recommendations in that particular area. The main thing that we say is if you look at consumer reports and you look at like top-rated security companies across the nation, they do all that kind of research and they can give you advice as to who they think is the best. So I would recommend check out consumer reports on that. There are a lot of do-it-yourself types of alarm systems. I know Ring has kind of gotten to that market. There's some other paid security companies that offer services as well. Just make sure that it's something that you're comfortable, the price, the technology they have, the response, all that kind of stuff. The main thing is if you're going to have a security company that they're going to be able to respond and that they communicate with us, or if you put a device up, make sure you have a method to monitor that. So with smartphones the way they are these days, I mean, a do-it-yourselfer, a good do-it-yourselfer can get everything right on Amazon or one of the other ship-to-your-house kind of stores, and you can set it up fairly easily yourself. It just depends upon your ability and your comfortable doing that. I don't have information as to whether they have, people that have alarms, the ones that have been broken into, if that was effective or not. I could try to get that information and get that over to Don, so maybe for the next meeting we can have more detail with that. There are some companies that do alarm systems. They're audible. A lot of the ordinances in cities and states and municipalities across the country have switched to where you can't have that audible alarm outside the home anymore because they just go off all the time for homes that are not available, people aren't currently living in them. And so it causes more of a nuisance in some of those. So what they've kind of moved to is more of the alarms that go off inside the home itself. And so you kind of have to be able to hear what's going on in the house next door. But, like if a window is smashed out or something like you should be able to hear that. the way things work out here is if an alarm does go off, the police don't immediately get dispatched unless we have confirmation from the alarm company that something is wrong. They have to verify it first before they send us out. So there's a lot of those armed response groups or even unarmed response groups. Once the alarm goes off, they have to come out to the home, and sometimes it could be challenging depending upon where you're at. So they have to respond, verify that a break-in has happened, then they will alert us, and we have to then respond, and then we'll clear the house and make sure everything's okay, take the report, do all that kind of stuff. There are active monitoring systems that some companies have where you install a camera in your home, and then when the alarm goes off, they've got live access inside your house, and they can identify whether there's a medical emergency or whether there's actually a break-in. When you see somebody running around with a ski mask on and a gun or something like that, that's usually a clue it's not you. But they have to visually be able to see that there's something wrong before they can call us and dispatch us out there. But do your research. If you're comfortable with it and you want to, I think an alarm is an added layer of protection. A security gate on the front of your house, another added layer of protection. Security laminate on the back, sliding glass doors or any big windows is another layer of protection. So those are all just different layers, and they all cost.
Sorry. So if you have a Ring doorbell and you're in another state, now you've been told that there really is somebody breaking into your home, and you're not there, can you call from that other state and have you come to the house?
Yeah.
And let's say you have relatives in town, would they have to be there? If you don't have relatives, can friends be there?
Yeah, no, so if you have like a Ring or an Arlo or something else that you're able to access from your phone, and you get an alert that motion has been activated, and you click on that and you see the link, and you're watching in real time somebody break into your house, you absolutely can call us. If you don't know the Henderson Police Department number, where you're at, call 911. Let them know you have a break-in in progress, but you're on vacation and it's happening in Henderson, Nevada, and that agency can transfer you from them to our 911 here to get that. We will ask if there's family or friend in town that can come respond to the location to help us secure the facility. If there's not, we will do our absolute best to secure it for you. And that means like if we have to call like a company to board up the window or something like that, we will do that. We'll do everything we can to make sure the house is secure for you. I will be here for a little while in the back, so if you have a question and you didn't want to ask in front of the group or whatever, I'll be back there. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you all.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sergeant Holman. A quick comment on the burglaries here. How many had alarm systems? I'd say less than 10%. They have proven, as Sergeant Holman mentioned, a resident received an alert, looked, there was a suspicious activity, actually they were outside, taking place, and the alarm company called, and they called the police. And the only problem with that is it takes time, and these guys are in and out. I mean, they're very fast. But alarm systems, like you said, it's another layer of security. I'd say maybe 10% of the burglaries we've had involved alarm systems to some extent. In answer to David Berman's question there on the streets, I haven't noticed any cul-de-sac frequency. And the most common thing I see is ready access and ready egress. And for example, if on the chart I had before, well over half of the burglaries have taken place on streets that have ready access from the west loop, from the side near Inspirata, Volunteer, over in that area. So they're looking for quick ingress, quick egress. And one of the things I like to note is that Black Mountain Village, our largest village by far, has very few burglaries. And my theory is that if you've ever tried to get in and out of any place in Black Mountain Village, you don't want to do it. So I think that the easy ingress and egress is a very important thing, and I haven't noticed anything about cul-de-sacs. So, okay, with that, we covered the Q&A. With that, our Fine Emergency Preparedness Service Group, Nigel Keep, will update us on activities there. Okay. That's the right-hand button. There you go.
Good evening. Thank you very much for allowing us to be able to present here. One of the things that, I just got to remember to turn it on. So the Emergency Preparedness Service Group has several charters that we've been asked to do by the Sun City Board. One of those is to provide emergency preparedness and response education, and we do that through several methods. Every month we publish an article in the Spirit magazine. We're also having a website, which will be on here a little bit later on. We also go out and speak to groups such as this. We are also in the process of, at least for next year, for 2023, trying to get 3 CERT courses here at Sun City Anthem on campus here. And we also end up, I don't know how many of you heard something called COVID. We were actively involved with that last year, in which we ended up providing education, which then led us to be able to work very closely with the City of Henderson and with the Sun City Anthem volunteers here. We provided, I think, something like 32,000 different vaccinations, followed by about 1,600 boosters. So that was something that we were very successful. Yeah. So it was very good. The other thing we also do is emergency response in the form of a damage assessment. So if we have a big enough of an event here in this area that requires us to be able to go out and think that there might be damage to either residences or facilities here, we're in the process of developing damage assessment teams that will go out and not only look for the damage, but also try to identify any residents that have needs, and we'll communicate that back to the City of Henderson as well as the board. And the other thing we also do is provide emergency communications to the City of Henderson. We do have landlines but we also have amateur radio, and so we can provide communications even if there's a communications blackout that might occur. The other things we also think about doing too is that, how many of you think of all these things that are sitting here, how many of those have occurred here? Well, except for the one up on, actually they're all actually here. We've had airplane crashes, all 3 Henderson airports, or 3 airports here. We've had fires, we've had floods, weather-related, there's been tornadoes, we've had snow. But the one thing that kind of scares me the most is that I didn't realize this until a couple weeks ago, that Las Vegas sits on 7 faults. And so probably earthquakes are going to probably be one of the most significant things that's going to happen. The second thing we've probably seen recently too was terrorism. And that's not just between incidents that have been going down at the Las Vegas Strip, but there's been chatter about also hitting the power grid. And when it's 116 degrees out, we need air conditioning that could be very significant for us as well too. So these are things that kind of keep us up a little bit at night. So what does it mean to be prepared? Well, one of the things to think about too is that we are kind of an island here. We receive a lot of our supplies via rail lines, via the highways, and through the airport. So including our fuel, believe it or not, it's shipped down through the Cajon Pass. So if there's a major earthquake, we're going to be really kind of isolated by ourselves until help arrives. So one of the things we recommend is that you prepare. In fact, how many of you are prepared now? You have food and water. Good. You should be prepared for at least 3 days of food and water. The water should be 1 gallon per person per day, and that's just for drinking water. It may entail also washing hands and things like that. You should also have a 2-week supply of your medications. Again, that's all very important. And then one of the things also, how many of you keep your cars at least half a tank full? If you think about it, if you had to evacuate, where would you be able to go on a quarter tank? Maybe out to the desert, and that'd be maybe a one-way trip. But the thing you want to be able to do is prepare for this, okay? The other thing also too is that if you have, anybody here have or know people that are dependent upon medical devices that require electricity? Okay, that's good. If you do have those things or you have medications that require some type of refrigeration, you should have a plan for those as well. Okay. The other thing too I think about too is that be prepared for as far as any type of things. If you have, when we had the COVID, how many of you ever went out to the Costco out there and all of a sudden the water and toilet paper are all gone? So those type of things happen. Panic buying can occur. So what can you do? Well, if you know about how to open your garage door. If the power goes out, you know how to pull on the handle there that you can pull it up. How about turning off your gas, your water, and your electricity? Hopefully you have all of your electrical panel circuits labeled so you know if there's an electrical fire and you have to turn it off, which one it is. One other thing to think about too, it's 3 a.m. Fire department's at your door. The house is on fire. You have to evacuate. Are you prepared to be able to have everything ready? Do you have your documents? Do you have clothes that you might be able to take with you, extra medications? Can they be easily, readily accessible? So that's just one thing to think about as well too. If you're traveling, how many of you have gone down I-15 when it's been snowing? Okay? Or it's 116 degrees out. Do you have the right food, water to sustain yourself? If it's during the wintertime, do you have enough warm clothing to be able to keep you prepared as well too? So one of the things that we recommend that you can do is how many, I think what was already asked about here about who signs up for eBlast. If you're not, please do. When we had the COVID, that was one of the most wonderful ways we could communicate with people. It's a good source of information. How many of you know about the Stay Alert Henderson program? Stay Alert Henderson is a program put out by the City of Henderson that allows that you can be alerted via text if there's an emergency. There's also the Southern Nevada emergency application that you can get, as well as the USGS earthquake notification. So if you feel an earthquake, you can get alerted and it tells you, okay, oh, it's only a 5.0 versus a 7.0 or something like that. Okay. From our perspective, we also have a website, scaepsg.org. We provide a lot of information on there and wonderful links to things as well. The other thing I'd also recommend too is that what you would end up doing too is that if anybody knows about it, it's called the First Six. It's a program by the City of Henderson that talks about AED, CPR, and also Stop the Bleed. And just a little plug here too, does anybody know about the Life Ride share with the Henderson Fire Department ambulance? You can sign up for it. It's $59 for an individual, $99 for the family. So it's a good thing to be able to do. So finally with that, okay, this main thing I want to be able to point out is that if you're not prepared, it's too late. Okay, something happens, you need to be prepared to be ready. Don't become a victim because you're not prepared. Yeah. So what the Henderson Fire Department will do is for an annual fee of $59 and $99, you will get unlimited ambulance rides. So it's a great thing, especially if you have medical conditions and need to be transported to the hospital. And we're very fortunate we have a fire station with medics out here quickly. And one thing actually the Henderson Fire Department is actually talking about doing is adding another level of first responders that will be actually probably during the daytime hours to be able to help transport. Okay. And I'll be in the back there if you have any questions. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, one other thing. Sorry, one last plug. How many of you seen these? Okay. How many of you know that if an emergency occurs and people use about maybe 20% of the subscribers start using cell phones, the cell phone towers will crash? So text messages are a good way to get things out. If there's a communications failure, what you can do is you can take these little notifications on red stickers, put them on your garage. When we're doing those damage assessments, that will let us know that you need assistance and we'll be able to assist you. Okay, great.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Nigel. And Nigel will be back at the EPSG table if you have any questions on that. That's an interesting one on the ambulance. That's the first I had heard that, so very good. So next, we are so very fortunate to have great volunteers, and one of the great volunteer organizations is our Sun City Anthem Community Patrol. And here to talk to you a little bit about that is Gene Fries. Gene?
First of all, I want to welcome everybody to your annual Neighborhood Watch program. The turnout is really, really exceptional. One of the other quarterly meetings that we had 205 members in attendance. I think this group has either equaled that or exceeded it. So thank you very much for coming to your Neighborhood Watch program. Before I get started on the Community Patrol, I want to recognize our patrol members that helped out with our program tonight. And I'll start on my left. We have Pat Monsey, if you'll just look around and give her a hand applause. Michelle Kahn, Vincent Kahn, Mary Kaplan, and Mike Radwick. Now, Mike, a little bit about him. He has been recently to be elected as the 2023 Chief of the Community Patrol. So Mike's taken on a responsibility, and he can certainly live up to his ability to do it. As Don said, my name is Gene Fries. I speak on behalf of the Community Patrol for the different events that we have. I am also a facilitator for the Neighborhood Watch program out of my village of Mountain View. And the other facilitator we have, Ken Gonzalez. Would you stand up, Ken, so that you can be recognized from Mountain View? How many in attendance are from Mountain View? Thank you very much for coming. All right, now a little bit about the patrol. We are an all 100% volunteer group of people. We currently have 110 people in our membership. And our sole purpose is to work with the Neighborhood Watch Program and with the Henderson Police Department to keep our villages as safe as possible. And how do we go about doing that? We have 3 patrol cars that are out on a regular basis. We have patrol members that walk the various villages. We have patrol members that ride bicycles for the community patrol. And I'm sure that you, from time to time, have seen all 3 of the different groups. I use this gathering as an opportunity for a recruiting tool. The patrol is always looking for more volunteers. You can drive a car if you want. You could be an observer to go out with the driver if that's what you choose, and you become the paperwork person. You can be a dispatcher. You can walk, or you can bike, or you can become a watch commander. Our office is located to my right between the bocce ball court and the tennis court. We are open 7 days a week, and we are open from 8 to 4 every day. The watch commanders that we have are our more senior officers. They've been around for a long, long time, so they have the operations of the patrol. There are several different services that we provide, and they're all intended to make our homes and our community much, much safer. One of them is a program that we are starting up again. We had suspended it for a while, but it's called a door window insulation. It requires putting 1/2 inch PCV tubing in the slider channels for your slider doors and also your windows. The patrol member will come to your resident in uniform. They will measure the lengths that need to be cut them and install them and put them into your home. And the labor is free. All you have to pay is the cost of the material. And when we suspended it, the cost of the PCV tubing was 15 cents a foot. Now, I have done this many, many times in the years past, and the largest house I had a lot of sliders, a lot of windows and doors, was $5.45. So it's a very, very cheap service and another deterrent to keep the crime element outside of your house. They're called the window door insulation. The other service, a very, very popular service, called a vacation house check. Many of you, I'm sure, in attendance today have used that service. It requires you to come to the patrol office and fill out a form. You need to bring your HOA card with you. You need to have a name of a contact person who will have a key to your house with their phone number. Now, the purpose behind that is when we are doing our check, we will go around and walk around the perimeter of your home every day for the first 30 days. We look for any kind of an indicator that your home has been violated, broken into, or something like that. And then we would call the 311 number on the Henderson Police Department. If you had a package that's been delivered, we will call the contact person and have them come and take the package either home with them or to put it in the house. Hot water break or anything like that, then we will get in touch with the contact person. It's called a vacation house check. And then day 31 through 90, we do it once a week. So we have a 90-day period of time that is covered where we will go through and walk around. Very, very popular service. The other one that we have is called a reverse directory. And I want to thank everybody that stopped at our table on the way in to check your information on the reverse directory. The thing to remember about this information is confidential to the patrol, and we share it with absolutely no one. So for those in attendance that did not have an opportunity to fill out this reverse directory, stop by our table after this meeting is over with. Now, what it consists of is your name and a phone number. in case we need to get in touch with you. It's important during the daytime, and even more so if you should travel. We have had many cases where the resident is in our reverse directory, and we would call them to find out that they are out of the area. So we make arrangements to have them call a neighbor or somebody else in the area to come and fix the problem. The predominant issue is garage doors left open. Pinnacle Village, drive at 11 o'clock, look at the reverse directory information on an open garage door, and they were in California. So we made arrangements to have a neighbor come down to close it. Anyway, that is the reverse directory information. Again, it's very important while you're in town, even maybe more so when you're out of town. And again, it's confidential and it's shared with absolutely no one. The phone numbers that you have on the screen here, take your smartphone out and take a picture of it, because at some time or another you may find it very, very useful. There was mention earlier that you have 911 and you have 311. The 911 call is an emergency call. You need to get medical aid right out there real fast. The 311 is a non-emergency number. That number on top, the Henderson Police Department, that is the direct phone number to the dispatch office at HPD, 702-267-5000, and they come up with a menu option, and it's option 2, which will be, say, a non-emergency situation. So you might want to put this number in your phone contact list, HPD, non-emergency, 311, and that way you will bypass having to be connected to Metro. Because as I stated earlier in our meeting, depending upon the tower that you're located at, if you dial 311, you may go to Metro. And then you would say, please connect me or transfer me to the HPD. So this particular number, you're going to get directly to the police department at HPD. The next phone number that you have is the office, Community Patrol Office phone number, 702-614-6751. And again, we have dispatchers that are on duty 7 days a week, 8 to 4. Now, the watch commander phone number, 702-622-1102, is this cell phone that I have with me. Our watch commanders serve a 24-hour shift. I came on at 8 o'clock this morning, and I will go off duty at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Being the office closes at 4, there is a recording that goes on to calls coming in after the hours, and if you need to talk to the watch commander, you would dial that phone number, and this phone would ring, and then I would answer it. I have a schedule at home with me, as do the other watch commanders, so we know how many cars we have out, and if a call comes in, then I would get in touch with one of the cars to go to the location that the caller is coming from and investigate what's going on. If there is no car out, then it is the watch commander's responsibility to go check it out. So those are 3 phone numbers that you may find very, very useful. I've talked about the vacation house check. I've talked about the reverse directory. At our table back here, we have some brochure information. It's a nicely done brochure. It tells you about the number of house checks that's been performed and things of that nature. So stop by our desk back there and pick one up, please. And please, consider volunteering, because it's really, really a great, good feeling to know that you're giving back to one of the greatest communities in all of the United States to live in. We are very privileged to live here. So think about volunteering. 4 hours a week is what we ask for volunteer. You do more if you want. We have multiple number of people that drive, and they walk, and they bike. They do all 3. So give it some thought. Thank you very much. Again, my name is Gene Fries, and before I end, I want to recognize the other patrol members that are in attendance. Would you all stand up so that you could be recognized also? These are all volunteer patrol members. So give him a nice hand of applause. I will be back at the table in that general area at the end of the meeting if you have any questions. Thank you for coming.
Okay, thank you very much, Gene. If there's any questions that you think would be of good general interest to the group as a whole, you can ask them now. Otherwise, all of us will be around afterwards if you want to approach us individually. And seeing none, I'll make one last appeal to please make sure you're signed in on the sheet, because when we draw this, we're going to check and see if you're signed in on the sheet. So with that, we'll have Gene Fries draw the winning ticket for either the Ring Video Doorbell 3, which incidentally has a little indoor cam that I have found very useful. It's really great. And the other is the Ring Floodlight Cam, where if you have an outside vehicle parked or to keep an eye on your back patio, it's a great way to do it. So with that, we have the winning ticket.
219-1197. Oh, we got a groan. If nobody claims it, I'm taking it. Back there, great. Come on up.
Yeah, come on up and make your choice. You have your choice of either the Ring Video Doorbell 3 and the indoor cam, or the floodlight camera. Yeah, that.
Well, we shut it down.
Okay, now get the name. Okay. Is that it?
That's it.
Okay, we have a winner. Okay, your name? Joe Zotti, Z-O-T-T-I. Are you in Big Sky? Are you in Big Sky? What village? Southridge, okay. This must be another Zotti.
So do you want the doorbell or the...
Okay, congratulations, Joe. Okay, well, thank you all very much for coming. Be sure to ask us any questions you may have after the meeting, and thank you very much for attending.